Hi, I'm Dave Sherwood, the CEO of Goodlyu. I'm here to introduce you to Campus Convos, the podcast where we discuss all things tech and education. Hope you enjoy it. Please subscribe on wherever you listen to your podcasts, and please give a share to others interested in the space.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Campus Convos. Joining me this week to talk about making dining services work on campus is Erik Russell, the Assistant Vice President of Hospitality and Auxiliary Services at Occidental College in LA. So Erik, jumping into a couple of questions, what do you think the most exciting trends are in higher education right now?
Sure. For me, I think there's a lot of focus right now on the way Gen Z approaches food, and the expectations of the way they approach food. Whether that's being personalized in their food, personalized in their ordering, the tech integration, and really a big focus on sustainability. And what that has done is it really pushes us to be more adaptive and really focus on being experience driven for the students. They want to eat on their own terms. They want to be flexible. They want to be mobile. And they care about values such as sustainability and impact and really wellness. And so that is really the main focus for us right now in terms of trends. And really what we're doing is learning more about that. And we're really trying to lean into that. And we've done that in a few ways. The biggest way we've done that is through the launch of a reuse pass program. And what that does is support sustainability through single-use clamshells on campus. And so we've been able to reduce the amount of single-use containers and divert that away from the landfills. And then on the technological side, we've been working with the local company here on piloting smart fridges to give students that flexibility they're looking for in terms of access to food outside of the traditional hours. So they still have food available to them even when the buildings are closed. So I would say those are the trends, I would say. But really for us, it's not just about the tech. It's also about giving students more control and autonomy in their experience and designing services around their needs and giving them more control and autonomy in the way they eat here on campus. And so what that does is it helps us shape our service design and really focus hard on staffing, making sure that we have people in the right places at the right time, and really kind of dialing back and really focusing on hospitality as a whole and making sure that we're very intentional about what we do and really how we design our program as we move forward.
Awesome. Super exciting. And when you're talking about smart fridges, you mean like that they can use after hours and buy food from the fridge?
Sure. Yeah, it is basically, it's a fridge that we stock up for the later hours or the off-peak hours. And so the venue may close, but we leave room for where the fridges are placed, the locations are there. They still have access to that location where the fridge is. Uh-huh. They go in, they swipe their campus card, and the door will open, and like a vending machine similar, and everything's got an RFID tag on it. So once you open it, you can take whatever you want from it. And when you close it, the fridge, it's smart in the sense that it's going to recognize what you took, and it's going to read the RFID, and it's going to do a real quick inventory of what was taken, and then it charges the student account. So we leave late night options in there. We will leave breakfast items for the next morning. We have one specific to athletics where we have performance products in there. And then we have two others in the dining hall that students have access to in later hours. And that's where we will then leave them either late night snacks. We will leave sushi in there for them, and we'll leave products in there for the next morning. So the students can come and get what they want when they want it, even if the dining halls are closed.
And what sort of food is in these smart fridges? I can imagine like sandwiches, like what sort of, maybe like fruit.
Yeah, you're going to have the snack boxes. So you'll have some with fruit and nuts and cheeses in there. You'll have sometimes we'll leave meals in there. There is a rotation similar to like a menu rotation. Some nights there'll be lasagna in there. Some nights there'll be chicken and mashed potatoes, mac and cheese. We'll have desserts. So you have slices of cake, slices of pie. You'll have some chia puddings in there. And we do work with a sushi vendor on campus. And So yeah, sometimes that's the number one seller on this campus is our sushi. So we got to leave sushi in there for the students, or else they wouldn't be happy with us.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, particularly, I'm thinking about myself doing an essay like late at night or something, and yeah, it's a pretty good selection if you like stumble in. I don't know if it's you said I think you said it's open 24/7, right?
It's not open 24/7. We leave it open till 2 a.m. so that the
Okay,
students have
that's late.
access. So it's
Yeah,
late enough. Yes.
stumble in at 1 a.m. You halfway through some essay and you can eat some sushi, like actual fresh fridge sushi. That's pretty nice. So yeah, it's cool how things are developing. Have you looked much at the more expansive version of the same technology, like how Amazon do just walk out, where in an entire shop, like a cafeteria or a merchandise operation, like there's no people, you just walk out. Have you looked at that kind of technology?
We have, and I'm excited about that sort of technology, and I think there's a place for it on this campus at some point in the future. But what we are challenged with here at Occidental is that we are a small campus. We have 2,000 students, all residential. So small campus, small student base means smaller budget, limited resources. And a lot of our systems are still manual, and a lot of our systems are not integrated across the departments, across campus. So what that means is that we have to stop and we have to think about what we want to do and where we want to put in and where we want to invest our money, and making sure that when we do invest in something like that, that it's done and it's done the right way. There's also the matter of real estate on campus, and we don't have a space right now that would work for that type of technology. But I see down the line a few years from now, there's the potential to have some with some right strategic moves. But we're not there now. But yes, I have seen it. I think it's great technology. I'd like to be part of it, but we're not ready yet.
I think like a lot of technologies, I mean, we run 70 campus stores. We had a look at the technology too. I think like a lot of technologies, when they first are released, there are issues with them from a user experience perspective. I think theft is quite a challenge for the technology. I gather also Amazon, it's not entirely automated. They have people like watching cameras that like figure out what people have bought. So you've obviously got that it's not actually quite working, and then the cost as well. But I've used one before. I know you've used one like a supermarket. Amazon just walk out. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And like you say, I think as time passes, the tech will get better. It will become more affordable. Maybe have use cases that are more relevant as well. It's an very interesting time we live in.
There's so much evolving in college dining, and there's new tech, service models, the expectations, and so what we're doing is we're stepping back and we're watching what works and what doesn't work across the industry. And really, over the last few years, we focused on building the foundational systems that make future innovations possible. So we've spent a lot of time over the last 3 years doing the basics in terms of technology, upgrading our POS, implementing online ordering for catering and moving that from a manual email back and forth based system to actually rolling out a system like CaterTrex, where now our stakeholders can create and send in their own orders. Up until 2 years ago, we were a cash only campus. So now we accept credit cards. And as I mentioned, introducing tools like smart fridges and Meta FoodX, which is a food and production management system. Those are the base systems that we've been working on over the last 3 years to set the foundation for what we want to do moving forward. And as you mentioned, it also gives us time to evaluate the growing number of new players in the space and assess their long-term viability as partners, because that's important to us as well.
Yeah, it's true. It's an interesting one. It's something we've come up against quite a lot. We've been around 10 years now, but really in the US for 4 or 5. And often, particularly in the earlier days, people would want to see, are you sustainable, like your financials and things like this,
Right.
ask for reference accounts. And sometimes we'd give reference accounts and then they'll be quite specific and say, well, what about like, community colleges in California or private colleges in, wherever, Nevada. And so extremely specific references that it's probably unlikely for a small growing company to have. And so it's a challenge, and it goes both ways, I guess, generally. an institution will work with an up and coming player because there's better service or product, and they're growing fast, and it's sort of like an exciting opportunity, and they take a bit of risk that, you know, it might not be as cookie cutter as the big old vendor. So it's an interesting one. You mentioned as well, so environment, like in terms of the student preferences, it's not just like what they're eating in terms of types of food, like sushi, which is super cool, by the way. I don't think we ever had sushi on campus when I was studying. But also the environmental impact. And you mentioned about, you know, non-disposable items. I guess plastic is a big thing too, right? And like reducing plastic, given that the impact it has on the oceans and all sorts of bits of the environment. Is there a push to reduce or potentially get to zero plastic? It feels like, you know, that's into the future, but interested to hear about what you're doing on that side of things in a bit more detail as well.
Yeah, there's a big focus on plastic, and what we are really looking to do in our campus dining is limit our exposure to single-use plastics. So the clamshell program, that has been a great partnership with Topanga IO and their product of the Reuse Pass. And what we've been able to do there, as I mentioned, is reduce the number of single-use containers that we use on campus, and then that diverts from the landfill. And there's other things that we can do in that to reduce our use of single-use plastics. Straws are another one. Straws are a big one, and I know that everybody likes to roll their eyes with the straws, but it's important. And so what we've done is really just take away the straws and, you know, have it, and there's not the need for it. You know, it's a convenience. We still have the straws so the students can ask for a straw if they want it. Sure, here you go. Another thing that we've done to limit our usage of single-use plastics, to go cutlery. So that is now just not open out in the open anymore. Now, same thing with the straws. If you want a single-use plastic fork, spoon, or knife, absolutely, just ask us. We will give it to you, but it's not out in the open for you to take as many as you need. And so we try to gatekeep that as much as possible, and that helps us to limit that dependence on the plastics.
Yeah, super interesting. In Europe, there's regulation to, I believe in the UK, there's no plastic straws anymore anywhere sold. And then also they've got these bottle caps on plastic bottles that when you open the bottle cap's still attached to the bottle. So both obviously kind of similar goals to reduce plastic that's in the environment as opposed to being disposed. And actually I have a 2.5-year-old. And the cardboard straws are quite annoying because he squashes them easily and stuff like that. And so that's quite annoying. But obviously it's good for the environment, and hopefully over time the technology gets better and better and better. And so that, you know, maybe there's like a special type for younger kids and stuff like this as well. Talking more broadly, you know, what about the personalization side of things in food services? Like, do you provide different types of things to different groups on campus? And there anything else personalized, you know, mobile ordering, dietary tracking, sustainability, anything else on that side that's been changing much lately?
Yeah, there's been a lot of change in dining over the last few years. And, you know, students expect options, and they expect options that feel tailored to them. And that can show up in many ways. It can show up in terms of dietary flexibility, the hours of operation, or the speed of service. And these expectations, they're valid and they're important, but they're also challenging, especially with many of our particular systems still being manual. So as I mentioned, you know, we're building the infrastructure so that we can deliver that level of personalization that students are used to, particularly from the big commercial brands and the bigger institutions that they see out there. Some of the other colleges they visit have systems, have amenities that maybe we don't offer. As we grow technologically into the future, we're not there yet, but we are fully aware of the personalization and the convenience needs and demands of our student base. But on a small campus like ours, we can make adjustments quickly, and we can respond to the individual needs. And through that, we build trust through direct connection. And we see hospitality as a differentiator and not just a service. And so we can do things like support our athletics department. And, because we are a small Division III school, limited resources, we can do things like give them a smart fridge that has products specific to athletics and for training needs. We can do things like support them, maybe not technologically, but we can support them through sideline kits and through strategic partnerships on our end that really help them just have Gatorade on the sidelines, and that they have towels, and water bottles. Those are the things that we are really focused on, the human element. And then as we grow into the technological element, how do we bring that element? How do we not lose that element? Because as I said, that makes us, we feel a differentiation, or that makes a differentiation for us on our campus, is that human element, that hospitality sense of creating memories. And we want to personalize, and we do that in many ways. And we want to provide that convenience, but in many ways we're strapped, and we are not strapped financially per se, but what we are is we're limited in our ability to do so with the limited number of buildings available to us. We don't have much room to grow, so we have to innovate within the spaces that we have currently, and we're looking and evaluating how we can do that as we move forward.
Yes, it's a super interesting time we're living in, with artificial intelligence, obviously, and particularly when it comes to like new technologies, like our CTO put together an app, an end-to-end app. I mean, it's just a little prototype in a few hours the other day, something that would have taken weeks and weeks before. So it's crazy how quickly things are changing, and then that obviously has consequences across the board, because previously where a technology may have been too expensive, it's now affordable, or there was a niche where it didn't make sense to build custom software, it can make sense, or you can use AI directly potentially. In terms of like some of the biggest challenges you faced over the years in dining services, it'd be helpful to understand some of those. Maybe like a long time ago, a little time ago, and more recently, like what the different challenges have been over time.
Sure. Boy, there's been a few. I think the challenge that I would offer up here is the challenge that we're currently going through here at Oxy, is how do we keep that human element? How do we lean into the hospitality part of it? How do we keep that trust and equity that we've built up with our students? And how do we move on and develop that and implement technology that makes sense? Again, without losing that. And we don't want to get too far away from the human element, because on a small campus like ours, that's why many of our students have chosen to come here, because it's small, because it's intimate, because we're on a first name basis with many of our students. How do we preserve that so that we don't move too far away from that? Because those speak to our college values of care, of connection, of community. And how do we bridge the two worlds, essentially, is what we're talking about here. And how do we move forward without losing that element? For us, it's less about the financial aspects of doing that. There are business cases to be made for why we should implement certain technologies. But we weigh that very heavily against that human element part of it that we really don't want to lose. So that's a real challenge. And we're having a lot of conversations on campus right now about how do we do that, and how do we do that with intent so that we can preserve what we've built and that equity and trust that comes along with that.
The more technology sort of commodifies maybe like content and software, or makes it easier for those things to be created and get given away and distributed, I think everything comes back to, and just the general like AI kind of trend, everything comes back to those human connections. And obviously being so small, it's a huge selling point for many students to be part of a smaller community. I certainly remember, so I studied at the University of Western Australia and Oxford University, and both good institutions. The University of Western Australia, very big institution, 30, 40,000 students. I was one of 500 in like a first year class, right? And so like I didn't have a relationship with the faculty. It's hard to meet other students sometimes too. It was a good institution, and over time as I specialized more, there was certainly more of a community. But at Oxford, it's much more like small groups. Like there's a small group in the dorm, and then you get to do tutorials with just a couple of students plus faculty together. And it's so much better. Like it's such a good way to do learning. It almost sort of makes me think that the K-12 model of like small classroom is the best way to learn, to be honest. But it has downsides too. It can be expensive, of course. And so, changing the subject a little bit, obviously Occidental College has a very, very, very famous alumni in recent times, President Barack Obama. And so, yeah, it'd be interesting to hear a bit more. Like, has he come to visit since he became president? When was he there? Yeah, it'd be cool to hear a bit more about that story. And it's kind of crazy that, you know, a school of, you know, quite a small school in enrollment has a president, right? Obviously you're a historic school, so there's that, but it's super cool.
Yeah, it's we're very proud of that, and for sure. It really, again, bringing it back to the core values of the college of really of equity, of care, compassion, of making college accessible to students regardless of socioeconomic status. There is a proud legacy on this campus, political and social activism. Having that validation that President Obama was part of our community really holds us up and makes us gives us a real distinction between other liberal arts colleges. And as I said, we're very proud of that fact. To my knowledge, and I've been with Oxy 3 years now, to my knowledge, I don't think he's been back, at least since he's been the president or since he was the president. I'm sure he has a lot going on, and I understand that we've tried several times to get him to come back, but we keep working on it. But on campus, his legacy lives on in terms of the Obama Scholars Program, and that is a program that really identifies stellar performers and higher performer students on campus and people that are passionate about making a difference in the political sphere and working in the world affairs and coming up through that department and through that school, I should say. And so he has a program here with his name and legacy on it, and we're very proud of being able to say that President Obama came to this campus.
Yeah, it's epic to have that. I'm sure at some point he'll come visit. And it must be you know, speaking to prospective students, it must be such a cool thing to be able to say. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like the college values align quite closely with Obama's sort of values as well, which is cool. Really appreciate you taking the time today, Erik. It's been interesting for me to learn more about the dining space. We obviously operate sort of a bit adjacent to that in the campus store space, but broadly in the same umbrella. So super interesting to learn more. And yeah, I wish I had sushi on campus when I studied.
It is Los Angeles.
Well, I was thinking that. Yeah.
There are some stereotypes that don't really always ring true.
Exactly, the West Coast culture and all of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, sure. I know. So really appreciate your time today. It's been awesome.
Yes.
And yeah, just a reminder to all the listeners, obviously, thank you again for joining us today. Do make sure that you subscribe and give us a review, whether you're listening on YouTube, on Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this. And look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.